would you like to talk about the Constitution? The Constitution. Here you go.
For it or against it?
Yeah, for it, 100%. I have a little Constitution book.
I had to ask about that.
And John Craig and I talked about this at one point in time. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to read a couple of statements by people back in the day that the Constitution was written, and what we can talk about what they had to say. Here is a statement by George Washington about the federal Constitution. He says, the federal Constitution should the federal Constitution adoption process should everything proceed with harmony and consent according to our actual wishes and expectations, will demonstrate as visibly the finger of providence as any possible event in the course of human affairs can ever designate it. So I'm reading this as the federal Constitution process should proceed with harmony and consent based on our actual wishes and expectations back in those days. And that will demonstrate as visibly the finger of providence as any possible event in the course of human affairs can ever designate it. So I'm actually seeing that George Washington here is saying that the Constitution is made up based on what they would like to make sure that everything in the Constitution will not only affect them as they are, whoever's alive at that point, but as any possible event in the course of human affairs, so on and so forth. So when they made the Constitution, they were actually foreseeing that the things that they're covering in the Constitution will cover those things as time perpetuates. Is that what you hear, or any response to that?
From what I'm remembering what you're saying on that George Washington quote, he wasn't just thinking of the present day.
Right.
He was thinking of the future.
Right.
And maybe actually, he doesn't exactly say it, but he's talking about the Constitution, and we know that the Constitution has had more amendments added to it as we have progressed in this country of things that needed to be spelled out in our Constitution. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
So I think he was not just, he was talking about maybe the how they were to write it, how they were to adopt it, the different steps along the way, and how we would handle the Constitution. Because there's been a lot of people that have been out there that have tried to change the Constitution. In fact, what was that Equal Rights Amendment was supposed to be going to the states, and there were so many states short, but they've been told by the Supreme Court that the time, they only have a certain length of time to do that, and that time period has been passed. So they can't do it now. They cannot add that amendment to the Constitution.
Interesting. I see. It's practically everybody knows more about the Constitution than I do. Simply because even though I learned it in high school and I understood what it is and I've looked at certain things from time to time, it's never been my area of interest enough for me to go in and actually study it out, learn it, or anything like that. And though history is huge to me, I love history. I love learning all kinds of things, especially about our country. But so when I found or got this little book, I thought, well, how cool is this? I'm going to learn about the Constitution. And so I thought, well, other people are like me. They don't know much about it either. So let's talk about it. Let's put this together. So
I'm like you, it's been years since I looked at the Constitution. We had to memorize a preamble, and all that when we were in high school. I don't think they require that even now, but that's another issue. They're not teaching what's in the Constitution. They're not exactly memorizing all the articles of the Constitution, but at least giving an overall view of it. And it's been our Constitution of the United States that has protected us from many of the swamp creatures coming in and trying to, they always stand up, oh, the Constitution said, well, you don't care about the Constitution unless you want to twist it to your own game.
That's right.
So, the Constitution starts out, we the people, not we the Congress, we the president, we the whatever, the we.
Right.
It's we the people.
That's and right.
The Constitution gives power to the people, not Washington. And that is what a lot of people don't understand, or these kids coming out of college. I think it ought to be, and I thought about calling our state representatives and stuff and asking them if they are our education people in the state of Mississippi, because that's where I live. But I think we all ought to call them and say, look, in order for our kids to graduate high school, it ought to be a requirement that they have to pass the same test that the immigrants take to become citizens of the U.S. That is why the immigrants who have become citizens of the United States have a lot more respect for the United States, because they know our history, and then they have to take a test and be able to prove they know our history and everything that comes down. They had Water's World. He went out and asked people what were the names of the ships that came over for Columbus, and they couldn't. The young people couldn't even answer that. Something basic like that. And who's George Washington? Well, I don't know. I'm like, duh.
I understand. Yeah, exactly right. Very good. That's exactly right. I agree with you 100%. It's almost, I wish each one of us would. I think all the politicians should have to publicly read this and record, I understand this Constitution of the United States,
Well, a lot of them are attorneys, and they should. It's not that they don't understand the Constitution. They don't want the Constitution. They do not want it.
Well, it doesn't suit their needs. Let's put it that way.
They want to take the power from the people. Look at the gun laws in Virginia. That is who was it? AOC. She always pops off and says something that shows her ignorance to all the world, and she's so ignorant she doesn't even know that she's so ignorant. She made the comment, well, if we were supposed to have guns, it ought to be a right. Hello? It is a right, because it was given. I know. Our forefathers knew what it was like to live under a totalitarian government, and the people did not have guns to defend themselves. And it was given to us so that not that we would go shoot each other, but that if our government got up and got so corrupt, we could remove them. That's exactly what it was given for. And, I did that report on that movie that you can find on YouTube, An American Story, about how in Tennessee, them good old boys up there, they were coming back from World War II, and there was a corrupt political machine running everything, and how they all, they went in, they shot a poll worker and all this. They were trying to rig the elections and took the box. That's back then when you wrote your, put in a ballot box. They took the ballot box up to count their own votes and stuff. and one of them had keys to the armory, and they were all veterans coming back from World War II, and they'd been fighting in other countries for them to have freedom. And they went up to the armory and they locked and loaded, and they went down to the jail where they had taken the ballot box, which was actually against Tennessee state law that the ballots had to be counted before all the people, and they were doing it in secret. And they attacked that jail, and they thought it was such a strong jail and everything. Well, they forgot that some of them fellers knew munitions, and they blew the door off the jail. And they got in there, and they said the next morning all the guns had been returned to the armory, cleaned and in their place, and nobody was ever prosecuted over it, because they took the ballot boxes, counted in front of everybody, and it was the couple of World War II veterans that were running that actually won the election. So that is one blatant example of a corrupt government, and we, the people, took up our arms and took back the government as it should have been. That is why, Obama and Clinton and them, they have designated veterans as possible terrorists.
Wow.
They know how to use a gun. So until they get our guns, or lay down, play dead, like some of these other countries have done, they cannot take over our government. We still have the power. That's why the governor was so scared in Virginia when they had thousands and thousands of people show up because they were trying to pass bad gun laws to take their guns from them. And they showed up with their AR, and all this stuff. I don't know if they had their guns. I can't remember. But there are thousands of people, and he was going to call out the National Guard and all this because he thought they were coming after them. And it really scared them. They actually had 4 Democrats vote against the laws that he was trying to pass. But it was interesting because they said that when all those thousands of people left, they picked up their own trash. There were no riots. There were no fights. That the grounds and everywhere they had been looked better than when they came there. Now you look at some of these other places that have big gatherings like that, and they tear everything up and leave all kinds of trash out. And another comment was made. It said they had more diversity in the gun people, different racial, cultural people there than they did in the women's rights and the women's march. The women's march were mostly the Caucasian women that were out marching. There were not too many of the African American women out there marching. So I thought that was an interesting observation that they made. So we're really in a battle for this country, and it's not just physical, it's spiritual. We need to be hitting our knees before this up and coming election.
Every day.
It's so important. God saved us from being enslaved by these rascals that are up there, and he's exposing what they've done. But it's been because there have been people who have been willing to fight that spiritual battle, and that's what the On Fire prayer group is about. That's what Intercessors for America is about. It's people hitting their knees because only God can stop this stuff and expose this stuff and deal with this stuff. And what does it say? If my people, and we're his people, we are called by his name, if we will humble ourselves, and usually that means fasting when you see it in scripture, humble ourselves and turn from our wicked ways, and come before him. Let's see, my people who are called by my name, who will humble themselves and pray, turn from their wicked ways. 3 things required: humble, pray, and turn from our wicked ways. Then he will hear and heal our land. And that is really what we ought to have at least one day a week, that we fast and pray and lay before God and intercede for this country. Because we were going over the cliff on a fast train, but I just remember when Trump was elected, I had already just thought Hillary was going to win, and I'd gone in the bedroom and I got down on my knees and I said that day, Father, you raise up kings and you put down kings. Whichever way it goes, blessed be your holy name. And I was as surprised as anybody that Trump won. And I think he was put in there for a reason. We've been given a reprieve. My personal opinion, not Messianic Lamb Network, just in case anybody wants to write Mark, don't do it.
I'll do it. It's all right. Go ahead.
He's been put in there for a reason.
That's right.
He has recognized Israel as Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. He's done a lot of things, and we ought to be, sure. Next election. I mean, we've already seen what they're doing. I mean, when they get in power, what happened in New York? They applauded the murder of babies because they passed that horrible abortion bill and stood up and applauded it. That's horrible. I think that the baby abortion Holocaust is even more horrific than the Holocaust of the Jewish people. And I'm not saying one is worse than the other, but it's on the same level. Sure. Because the babies are totally innocent. They're totally helpless. They're at the mercy of those, and they're not showing any, so. And I always try to say this, Mark. If there is a woman out there who's had an abortion, we're not condemning you. We're speaking against the system, because the woman is as much a victim as the baby. And a woman knows in her heart of hearts. And so if you have, we're not putting condemnation on you, but we're telling you there is a way of restoration in Yeshua HaMashiach, that his shed blood will cleanse you and he will restore you. So there is hope, and he will forgive you, and you need to forgive yourself, because you're just as much a victim as this system as the babies are. And my heart goes out to women who have done that, because they were victims. They were scared. They didn't know where to turn. They were told all these lies, and there is, he will restore you, and there is forgiveness, and forgive yourself.
Amen. Very good. Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate that whole discourse. Is very good. I want to read this first part to the Constitution of the United States.
Oh yeah, we're on that. I don't know how we got off.
No, it's fine. No, actually, your transition from there is all a part of that. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's good. All right. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So, that right there says it all. Mm-hmm. It does, and then it's expounded on. So once again, this little book is pretty cool. If you can look that up on the internet, I think you'll be blessed with that. And you can follow along with me, because I've just started this series, and
we are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.